Before we dive into today's episode, we have some exciting news to share. Our spring cohort of the Next Economy MBA begins on March 28th, 2023, and we want you to join us. We designed the Next Economy MBA for entrepreneurs and change makers who are helping to create a world that works for all life. During this 9-month program, you'll learn practical skills on how to transform your organization into one that is just, equitable, and regenerative. Plus, you'll join an alumni community of over 400 impact leaders who are transforming organizations around the world. Interested in learning more? Visit lifteconomy.com/MBA to view our course curriculum and sign up for a free intro session with our facilitators. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show.
Welcome to the MBA Series. This is a special multi-part series within Next Economy Now. We are going to review the arc of the learning journey that is presented in the Next Economy MBA online course. We are open sourcing the content from our course and hope to share it in this shorter, bite-sized format. We are launching this series because we were asked to do it by listeners like you. We're also doing it because we are writing a book entitled The Next Economy MBA, Redesigning Business for the Benefit of All Life, which will be published on May 23rd, 2023 by Barrett Kohler Publishers. This is a sizable series. There will eventually be 18 podcast episodes of course content and 9 interviews with MBA alumni. We will be rotating every other week with our normal Next Economy Now interview format. We hope you enjoy it. Please reach out to us via our website, lifteconomy.com, with any comments, feedback, or requests. And now, on with the show.
Hello, and welcome to Next Economy Now. And this is our MBA series. And today we are on session number 9, Culture 2, Communication. And
Yay!
My name is Sean Barry. Yeah, communication. Woo! I'm Sean Barry. I'm a partner at Lift Economy, and I'm here with
Phoenix Soleil, and I'm a partner at Lift Economy.
Yay, Phoenix. So happy to be here with you. This is one of my favorite sessions to do with you. And I wanted to start, Phoenix, by asking you to share some of your background around communication and why folks might be interested to hear from you on this topic.
Yeah, well, I feel very lucky. I was starting my own business. It was actually a tech business. And I was looking for support with the different things I was doing. And I saw this poster that said, how to get along with difficult people, including yourself. And I went in for this free workshop. And it was interesting because it was the anniversary of 9/11. And it was amazing to me how we all, this group of 12 people, got someplace very deep quickly in this workshop. And I was curious, and I kept noticing that there was something about the space that was created with nonviolent communication that created a space that I really appreciated, that offered more intimacy. And I had already had a lot of growth learning meditation and going to meditation events and feeling like I was getting a whole new level of intimacy with myself. And then what nonviolent communication and working on different things around connection with others was like, oh, wow, I can have a whole new level of depth with other people. And what I was excited to see is that as I got deeper, that conflict, which is this thing that I always thought, I had been working with activist organizations in New York City and doing different things. And I was saddened sometimes by the conflict that would happen with people who have the same values. And it kind of disappointed me and I got into a case of sometimes feeling some cynicism about change. But then seeing how, wow, people can really work through things, and sometimes working through a conflict deepens the relationship. When you get through something like that, you have more trust and more connection. And so I was excited to learn, and I went through different programs to learn how to teach, and then I started consulting and getting to offer that to organizations who are trying to do things differently and offering mediations and skills around collaboration and how to be our full selves. So that's some of my background. I feel like I just went on and on.
Uh, Thanks, Phoenix. I think it's an important story, right? Because I hear you were involved as an activist trying to change certain things, but then you realized that the friction and the communication between the teammates was a limiting factor. And then you had another experience of people able to communicate and creating a space where it was safe. And that was a different experience, right? So it kind of opened you up to a new possibility. And then your career evolved from there to helping other people, right? To teaching this and mediating other conflicts. So to me, there's a through line there of your activism creating a difference in the world. But instead of fighting against the thing or fighting for the rights that should be, you're actually working on maybe even a more core issue of how people connect with each other.
Right, right. And I think what's great about what Lyft does and the kinds of companies we work with is that you're trying to bring your whole selves. I mean, this is not just about selling widgets. The companies that are interested in being corporation or interested in worker owner co-ops or how to do regenerative agriculture, they realize that we have a lot of systems that are broken. And so they're like, how do we do things differently where people don't have to feel like they have to give up so much of themselves in order to make a living or in order to make a difference in the world? And so that's a great opportunity to teach and to be able to be of service to those organizations.
Right. So it's not just the purpose of the organization, but it's how they're doing it. Of course, we're in culture and we spent our last session on values. So now here we are talking about communication. So Phoenix, why is communication so important if you're trying to do something really important in the world?
It's how you connect. It's how we learn to communicate as children. And if what we inherited worked better, I think we'd have a different world than we have. I mean, there's a lot of good things that we've inherited, but sometimes we come from families or cultures that are conflict averse. Sometimes we come from situations where it wasn't safe to advocate for our needs. And, you have this workplace and people show up and we all act as if we're on the same page about what's okay. And then sometimes the business as usual rules aren't about the values of being honest and being authentic and being vulnerable. So it can be complicated to be a human being, really complicated. So if you want to have a different workplace, for example, hierarchies, if you have the typical business model, which, has some pluses, one of the problems is sometimes people don't tell you the truth because we've learned to be afraid of authority, and we've learned to, many of us are, that power differential is hard to overcome. So people in power have a hard time getting information that they need to make decisions and to avoid problems down the line, and also just to have creativity. So then there's some strategies that we can use to try to address some of those dynamics so that we can have different, more effective, more quality outcomes. I want people to hear about your background.
Well, I mean, as it relates to this topic, I started worker co-op in the 90s, my first one. And yeah, I quickly realized that, especially when you're trying to do things democratically, collaboratively, communication becomes a really important. It becomes both the limiting factor and the enabling factor. So the ability to listen and understand what people are thinking and feeling about a certain, it might be a decision or some things that we're collaborating on. When it goes well, it's great. When it doesn't go well, it limits what you can do as a company. So I don't know if it was the exact same time, but probably early 2000s, attended a nonviolent communication workshop and, just started just kind of realizing that I wasn't prepared to cooperate with people, right? you're sharing, some of why it's important. And you can see within organizations that aren't inviting input or practicing good communication, they have a disengaged workforce, or maybe people are leaving the company, or people don't want to work under that boss or something. And it really limits the ability of that organization to perform. So yeah, I was able just to make some progress, and I'm still definitely in active process of learning and growing together within our team and with the teams we work in. Yeah, it was kind of very early on really obvious to me of how important it is. And as we did in our core value session last time, talk about, investing in the culture, but investing specifically in like communication skills and that awareness on the team.
Right. And I mean, it's so great to hear you talk about starting worker owner co-op, because I think that happens to us where you think, okay, I'm going to create a safe space. And then they're like, okay, it's safe. And that's usually not enough. It takes a lot of self-awareness to be in a space that's using a different method of making decisions. Like you think, oh, it's just great. We've got this great system. It's going to just work. But even getting people to trust that they can be heard. And then, it takes some skill to learn how to self-manage your own needs, and then what things to say, when to say it, and how to say it so that you're making it easier for people to hear you. And then getting the skills to be able to hear sometimes what's behind the pain that someone's expressing. It's a lot, but it can be done. The thing is that when you invest in shifting those patterns, then what you have is less friction. Because I've been in organizations where what happens is that people don't say anything to each other, thinking, okay, I'm just going to be mature and let it go. And then it just keeps going. It's like, the analogy I like is that it's like a backpack. You keep putting stuff in it, and it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And then it's really heavy. And then one day someone didn't clean their cup in the kitchen, and it's like, rah! It's like,
Can't take it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I do conflict mediations, with workers, it's like you get two people to listen to each other, to really hear their stories. And it's amazing, like, that people start to understand. They start to be able to contextualize, oh, so that's where the behavior was coming from. They start to hear, oh, this isn't this ogre who was just trying to out to hurt me. This is someone with different values who cares as much as I do. And it's just so amazing because you're putting them in a different context where there's different expectations, and so people can hear each other and give each other that time to be able to really share what's there. And then it's been one of the more challenging but also the more rewarding things I've done, is to see people who've been in conflict be able to come to understanding and mutual respect.
I'm hearing some gems in there, but maybe we should introduce what this idea of nonviolent communication is, or compassionate communication, because I hear some of the pieces coming out. But I want to maybe introduce that and then go into some of those elements. Like, I heard you saying somebody's behaving differently, but underneath they're caring, and we actually care about some of the same things, right? Which is very important.
Right.
How would you introduce it? Or
yeah, I mean, nonviolent communication is so vast because it can be a way of not just understanding others, but understanding yourself. I like to think of it as a skill set and a modality for connecting with others. And one of the concepts that's important to it is the idea of people having needs, and these needs are universal, and these like basic needs. In a business environment, I might say efficiency or autonomy or things, and then in a more personal space, I might say expression, love. But in a business context, it's not that love doesn't exist, but you might want to use words like harmony.
right.
Community.
Cooperation.
Teamwork. Yeah, teamwork. And why is that useful? It's because if you go into a situation where you have a disagreement with someone and you stay at the surface level, there can be a lot of friction. You want to be able to come to work late, and I want you to come at 10 a.m. when the work week starts. And then that can seem on the surface just like, oh, you're not responsible, or someone else is being overly rigid. They could both have stories about each other that aren't, but if you get at a need for, I want to be able to have consistency. And for me, it's about being able to count on my teammates by having them come on time. And for someone else, it's like, I want freedom. Like sometimes I'm staying here late and being able to take care of myself by coming in later if I don't have a meeting that I have to get to is an important part of freedom and being able to feel that I can be my full self in my workplace. And from that conversation, it's a different kind of conversation. You're getting into the needs, and then that often allows people to be more creative, where they can say, oh, well, okay, first of all, respect the other person's needs, and you don't have to give up your needs, but you can be like, how can we find a creative way to address them both? And then what you're doing is you have a shared dilemma rather than a conflict. And that to me is like,
Yeah, can I just jump in because I'm excited about it? This idea that I'm not trying to win anymore, right? Like
yes,
that's, it's like it's an unexamined feature of our culture that I'm automatically trying to win or convince you. I might be quiet while you're talking, but really I'm formulating my argument of why what I'm thinking is correct.
exactly. Yeah.
Nonviolent communication in a way is totally opposite. And to me, I got excited because of this realization around I'm actually not surrendering anything by listening to you and identifying with you. I'm actually not giving up my own position. And in fact, I'm gaining an actual quality of connection with you by being present, by listening, but maybe getting curious, asking questions of, oh, did you feel sad? Did you have some emotions? I wonder what they were. I wonder what the needs are behind the emotions. I'm not losing anything. I'm actually gaining connection with you. And this idea of if I'm listening to you and letting you talk, that I'm letting you win, or I'm bending over or something. So anyways, I just got excited about that. But to me,
Yeah.
it's like, it shows how powerful it is to listen and connect with each other.
Right. And there's a lot to that because there's a lot of directions I feel like I want to take. Like one is that why I also see nonviolent communication not just as a connection to others, but a self-connection tool is because you need to have self-connection in order to hear someone. It might be a something that you have a lot of energy around, like you have a lot of attachment to it, to be able to kind of connect to and get deeper into, well, why is this important to me? Because on the surface level, you can say, well, I really want this because it's so important to the organization that we do this kind of marketing so that we reach the most amount of people, for example. I'm just making something up. But the need, just even knowing that you have an emotion around it, like some people, the less connection, they're not aware that they have a feeling. So just there gives them something where they have some self connection, where they have feelings. But then to understand that that feeling is connected to whether there's a need that's being met or not met, like being heard. Like someone might be angry about something and think it's about, oh, I want this marketing strategy to go forward. But really, the anger is about wanting respect. And when they can get to that level with themselves and process that, then that might change the whole way that they address the issue. So there's that self connection. And also, when you get really connected to your needs, it's much easier for you to hear someone else talk about something that you have a disagreement with.
The needs are shared, but the strategies might be different.
Yes, sometimes that's what happens is that you both have a need for effectiveness, but the way that you're being effective is different. But, knowing that it's a similar need can help with coming up with solutions.
So Phoenix, I'm hearing these words like needs and feelings, and I'm aware that those aren't comfortable words for some people, or in some environments, especially maybe in a business context, that's considered taboo. We're here to get some stuff done. The feelings and needs stuff, that's too soft, and maybe you could do that on your own time. But when you get to work, we need you to be all about business. So how do we get to a place where we can do that at work? Or is it possible to talk like this at work?
Yeah, well, maybe we'll put this in the notes for this podcast, but there's lots of studies that have shown that emotional safety is a main indicator of whether you're going to be creative and successful teams. There was it was in the New York Times, a famous study that Google did, and they were trying to figure out why is it that they'd put ace programmers in a room together and try to put a project through, and sometimes they just could not get them to create great software. And then other times you'd get a mediocre or programmers that weren't seen as being the best in a room together, and they would do amazing work. And it took a lot of time, and they were trying to figure out, is it leadership? Is it this or is it that? And the thing they came down to is emotional safety. When people feel valued, when they feel listened to, when they feel respected, when they feel like there's space for them to be themselves, they do better work. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's kind of part of this idea that we have that humans can be robots, and the more we're cared for our souls, the more we can show up. But I also understand where it's coming from, this fear of like, well, if we start talking about feelings, then everything's going to go to pot. Because a lot of times it's kind of like it's this intense thing where either we don't talk about it or we talk about it all the time. When you can have a need for efficiency, you can have a need for order, you can have a need for consistency or different things. It's not just like caring for people's feelings means that that's the end of productivity. People have a need to contribute and to make a difference, to have impact. It's about bringing your full self. And that's one of the reasons why mission aligned organizations actually sometimes do better than traditional organizations, because they're looking at the big picture. When you look at the big picture, you're bringing in more resources and more things. Like when you have people who get along with each other, like, yeah, it might seem at sometimes like, okay, we had that meeting, or, oh, it took some investment to get people on the same page. But then the things that people can create when they're really getting along, I mean, it's amazing. It's like you feel it when you walk into the room. Wow, this person has my back. That means so much of bandwidth is free to be creative and to be working on projects that really matter.
I love it, Phoenix. So it's not only can it be done, but it's, if we're not doing it that way, we're limiting the ability of the team. Or the other way to say it, right, is that by creating that safety for people to express themselves and feel safe, then you're inviting that creativity. You're inviting those results that come from freer, more open collaboration.
I'm curious, how have you helped companies work through being collaborative? What are some of the things that have helped?
Well, definitely introducing some of these ideas, and again, building on from our last session of core values and investments, this idea that it actually is smart business to invest in the culture. And one of the ways to invest in culture is by having space for communication. So one of the simplest ones that, we do all the time is a feelings check-in. How are you feeling today? We're going to have a business meeting and we have agendas and we have outcomes, but we're arriving as humans and colleagues, but also friends. And how are you feeling today? We actually really care about each other. So there's a space for it. It doesn't take over the whole meeting. This is something, I've seen, our team, we do it. A lot of teams I work with, you can check in with a hard feeling. Hey, I'm really sad today. Oh my goodness. I watched the news. It was horrible. I'm really upset about it. Okay. Check it at the door. I feel better. I arrived. I kind of synced up with the team. We heard each other. And now we can get into the agenda. So that's like one of the most common, kind of short and sweet, but there's space for it. And that makes a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah, the small things can make a huge difference.
Other ways is, having more time, like maybe on a retreat or an offsite, and, maybe there's actually some material we're working through together, or this is something that both happens on our team and teams we work with, of if there is something in a meeting that comes up and, hey, that's a little too much for the meeting, or we can't resolve it in this brief interaction and we need to get on with the agenda, then that gets broken out into a side conversation. Okay, let's check in about that one-on-one and see if we can work it out. I felt a little friction with you on that point, that kind of thing. So in a way, like normalizing that there might be some friction on the team. And actually you introduced me to this idea of cognitive abrasion being generative. So instead of me just saying, hey, I think we should do this, and it just always goes right through, actually having other people on the team that say, hey, well, I think we should do this and this. And then I'm getting a little frustrated of, that doesn't totally make sense to me. But then if I can hang in there, get really curious, and we can learn from each other, connect, what are the common needs? Maybe we have some divergent strategies. Let's actually have a principled debate about that without getting emotionally triggered and upset, etc. That's, I think, what you're referring to on like the Google study of like, wow, these teams actually have great outcomes. You wouldn't have thought, but because they're able to create this collaborative, this safe environment, these wonderful outcomes.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like I don't want to talk about communication or nonviolent communication without talking about how important the consciousness is. I mean, I think when a lot of people describe nonviolent communication, they might start with observation, feelings, needs, which is a way to communicate. And what I have always preferred is those teachers who focus on the consciousness. Because, sometimes for example, reflection is to me one of the tools that I think is so helpful. If someone's repeating themselves, they don't feel heard. So being able to take time and then give, in your own words, the sum of what you heard from them can be really helpful. That can help create some ease, because instead of fighting your point, what you're doing is showing them that you're getting them and you really care about hearing what they're saying. And, just totally, it doesn't have to be word for word. And the thing is that that's a beautiful tool. But if most of my energy around it is I'm just doing that so that I can get my point across, that's a very different consciousness. That's a very different intention. And with all these tools, if you don't really get honest with yourself and work on yourself, if you're just trying to win an argument, then that's not going to actually get you where you're going, because people can sense it. People can sense that you're not sincere. And then that impacts how things get communicated. Also, if you feel very stiff using something that doesn't feel yourself, then that's also going to impact how it lands for other people. So I definitely appreciate finding the ways to have these tools that's in your language, in your style. And nonviolent communication, there's words for street NVC or different things, and definitely there's ways of teaching it that's less about the form and more about the intention.
Right. Yes. The consciousness, the intention. So if the intention is to establish a quality of connection, right, where we're really connected with each other, we understand with each other, there's some caring there. That's more important than, hey, I'm trying to do the technique right, and I really just want to get my way.
Exactly.
Then people know it, right? Or yeah, that's the other critique we've heard, right? Is if you get too kind of technical in the, okay, the observation was exactly this, and the feeling was that, and the need was that, and it's, I'm looking at the sheets, and it feels very kind of technical, and you don't sense that desire to connect. It's not going to work, even though you're following the steps that you were taught, right?
Yeah, exactly. People really are affected by the energy. And that's why, like, I'm such a big proponent of doing the work just on yourself before you get into a conversation, or first of all, taking care of yourself. Like, what's going on with me? Like, just honestly and sincerely, because doing that is self-soothing, being really connected to yourself, and then trying to guess what might be going on for that person. You don't even have to say anything. Just the fact that you're trying to imagine, and from a place of respect, what might be going on for someone, that just changes your attitude to it. And a lot of times I've noticed that changes how they react to me, because they sense that I've softened. And when people sense that you're softened, they feel more open and they soften. So it's like this energetic spiral up, whereas sometimes it can be an energetic spiral down.
So there has to be that genuine curiosity, right? I have to really be curious of like, what's actually going on for you, even if I'm not saying that specifically, but you can sense that I'm searching for it, rather than sometimes, right, we talk about the curiosity judgment spectrum, right?
Mm.
So the curiosity side is I'm really putting myself in there to think what might be. going on. And the judgment side is like, look, I already know I'm right. How do I just get this person to kind of calm down and not be upset and approve my proposal, right?
Right.
It's very different energy.
Yeah, and that's where either doing self-empathy or journaling about it or whatever helps you get underneath it. Because when there's a lot of pain, it's really hard to be open to someone else, you know? Sometimes you're lucky and someone else has enough space to really hear you. And I mean, I've hoped that everyone listening has had that experience where when someone is really heart is open to you and they're listening to you, you can feel your nervous system kind of relax and let go. Yeah, and sometimes you can do that
settle
for
down.
yourself.
I love that too, because it's in a way it's a less risky invitation to invite somebody to practice self-empathy first, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get necessarily ridiculed, or it's not as dangerous or risky to just think about, wow, what am I feeling? And is that feeling connected to a need, and being curious. And then also, yeah, the point that you're making is that if you can't do that for yourself, how are you going to do that for somebody else, right?
Right.
And so we actually have this opportunity all day long. We're having thoughts and feelings, even though some people listening might not be totally comfortable with the fact that you have feelings, but please, yes, you have feelings. Otherwise, you're not really with us. So you do have feelings. It's okay. And they're very important guidance, right? Like if the feelings are good, then that might mean we have a need being met. If the feelings are bad, that might point to that we have a need that's not being met. So there's like this very simple, like directional guidance system that's hardwired with all the humans to let us know of, hey, do I want more of that or do I want less of that?
Yeah. And it's so helpful sometimes to just see the feelings and needs list. We could do a search, or maybe we could put it in one of the supporting documents. You know, there was some study of like if just naming a feeling helps people, that part of ourselves, relax. And so there's, something about naming our feelings, articulating it to ourselves, that self-awareness is very powerful.
Well, Phoenix, we've covered some of the basics. See, we're getting close to the end here. Anything else that we should mention or share in regards to this introduction to communication?
I mean, it's so deep. I mean, it's a vast subject, but I think we've done a great job of talking about some really cool aspects of our journey here. Thank you for taking the time. It's been great to share and explore, learn.
Yeah, of course. Such a deep topic. I find every time I'm revisiting it, there's more depth and there's more opportunity. So yeah, maybe one thing I would share, if it didn't come through already, is just the invitation to folks to really like, come on in. It's it's okay. Your feelings are here for you. We want you to be nourished, and we want you to have your needs met. And so the more you can do that, the more that benefits everybody.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks, Phoenix. It's fun as always. Look forward to next time, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lift Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.